Hey guys, and welcome back to the fourth and final video in my Pygame side-scroller series. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the finishing touches on our game, so that's going to include adding some sort of scoring mechanism, and then adding an end screen, and kind of fixing, touching up a few bugs, making a few tweaks. I'm just going to say right now that everything I do in this video, you guys don't have to do this. You can change any of the aspects you'd like. If you want to make the game a bit different, experiment with things, feel free to do that, and I encourage you to do that because the more that you can learn by yourself, the more you're going to retain that information. So pretty much, again, I'm not going to be making everything perfect in this video. There are a few glitches I'm aware of, so I encourage you guys to try to fix them on your own and to add new things into the game. This is just trying to give you a good starting point for where you can hopefully create a more complex game in the future. So I'm going to show you a quick, example of what I have. So I've already coded this, and I'm just looking off my other screen and kind of explaining it so that I don't get sidetracked in this video. You can see already at the top here we have our score. And I've tweaked the hitboxes a little bit in here, and you can see we can now slide underneath this and keep sliding, and then if I hit it, I will fall over, and you can see we're brought to kind of an end screen here where it says this is our best score, and this is the score we just received. Again, the screen is not very pretty, it doesn't show much. I'm just simply doing this to show you how you can kind of time out an end screen so that everything works with your game, and then if I click down on the mouse button, it just resets the game, and I'm able to try again. A nice thing I kind of would want to add is maybe just at the bottom say press the mouse button to continue, so that if someone were to be playing this game and they didn't know what to do or they didn't create the game, then they would know what to do. Again, that's a glitch, so you can see that he kind of flies up. I'm not going to worry about that too much. You guys can feel free to fix that in your own thing. So that's what it's going to look like, and let's get right into the code now. So the first thing I want to do is just fix a glitch that I noticed as I was writing this next section here, and that's going to come up a lot when you guys are making games. You're going to code something, and there's no possible way, again, that you can think of every situation, so we're just going to fix this. It's really small. I'm going to copy where we're in our runner class here, our player class, and it says self.falling. Now what I want to do here is pretty much this is when we say that our player is falling, we want to display that image of them falling. Now what ends up happening as I have this here in this program is if we are to like be jumping in the air and then we hit a saw, our player is going to finish the jump and then he's going to start falling. So if you want it to stay that way where you still see the animation of him finishing the jump and then there's a slight delay and he falls afterwards, then you can leave it like this. But what I'm going to do is just make it so the second he hits an object, he's going to look like he fell, so you know exactly where you kind of messed up in the game. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it up at the very top of our draw method here, like that. Now we do just have to change this, so get rid of the EL. We're going to say if, and then where it says self.jumping, I'm going to type an elif. Now what this is doing is just changing the sequence, so we're first going to check if the player's falling, and then if he's falling, we're going to do this. This is the reason why he doesn't continue to move down as he's falling. Like once he hits an object, it just starts splitting his falling body. So if you want it the other way, just leave it like that. But yeah, that's the first kind of bug fix in my opinion that we're going to be doing, and that's all we're going to be touching really in the runner class. Now what we need to do here is figure out what's going to happen once our player falls. So before we just had it delayed the game for like a few seconds, or like so that we could see that our player had fallen. What I want to happen is a screen to continue to keep scrolling, and then a few seconds later it pops up that end screen, so what you saw in my program. So the way we're going to do this is we need to create a few new variables here. So the first one I'm going to create is just going to be called pause. I'm going to set this equal to 0, and we're simply going to use this just to increment our time so that we don't actually delay like we were before. Now I'm going to set another variable, fall speed. I'm just going to set this equal to 0 for now. And what I'm going to do is when our object collides with our runner, I'm just going to say that fall speed is equal to speed. Just like that, okay? And we're going to come back to that in a second. Now I'm also going to add in one thing here, which is just going to say if pause equals 0, and then I'm going to indent this in, and then we're going to say pause plus equals 1, like that. Okay, so if pause is equal to 0, we're going to increment pause to be plus 1, or we're actually going to make it, sorry, not plus 1, we're going to make it equal to 1, and then we're going to set the fall speed equal to speed. Now, I'm going to explain how this works in a second, but it's easier just to type it all out right now. Now, up at the top, right underneath our redraw window, we're going to say if pause is greater than 0, we're going to increment to pause, so pause plus equals 1. And then after that, we're going to say if pause is greater than fall speed times 2, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, then end screen. Okay, now this we haven't created yet. I'm just typing this in for now. We're going to get to that in a second. So that reset function I have here, I'm actually going to change the name of that to end screen. So let's just explain what I've done here pretty well. So what's going to happen now is once our player collides with an object, we're going to check first of all to see if pause, which is a new variable we created, is equal to 0. Now, if that is true, then that means we haven't already collided with an object. Okay, because pause is set to 0 at the beginning. So once that happens, we're going to set our fall speed equal to our current speed. So say, for example, our current speed is like 35. That's how many frames per second we're moving. That's going to be set and stored in fall speed. This needs to be speed, not sped or whatever I had there. And then we're setting pause equal to 1 so that this isn't going to keep resetting. Because if we don't set pause equal to 1, then pause is still going to be 0. And it's going to keep changing our fall speed to our speed even after we've fallen. Hopefully you can understand that. Now up here, what this is going to do is we're saying if pause is greater than 0, meaning if it's equal to 1 pretty well, or 2 or whatever, then we're going to increment pause. Now what this is doing is we're only going to change this variable pause once we've started falling, because that's going to be the delay for how long we should wait until we move on to our end screen. We say if it's greater than 0, increment it, and then we're checking now if pause is greater than fall speed times 2. Now, what this does is it pretty much says that whatever our speed is, so say our speed is like 27 frames per second, we're going to multiply it by 2. Now, what that's going to give us is equivalent of 2 seconds. They're about 2 seconds. So when we get to the higher speeds, if we had just set this to a constant of, for example, 100, and maybe we're running at a speed of 100 frames per second, then the delay is going to be really short. So I want this to be equal to whatever the speed is when we fell, so that it's going to change dynamically based on how fast we're moving. It's kind of maybe a complex idea, but just throw that in there for now. It's not really that important to understand. Okay, and then what I want to do is I'm just going to put this redraw window at the bottom of our while loop here. I should have done this at the very beginning, but I don't know why. I'm going to put it actually underneath our clock tick here, like that, redraw window. Okay, just to clean things up a bit. And then that should be it for our while loop, at least for right now. Now we need to go to our end screen. So what I have here is I'm going to change this reset to end screen. And then inside of our end screen, to make sure that we stay inside of our end screen, we need another while loop. So in the end screen, what's going to happen is we're going to reset a few variables so that our game will be able to reset when we move out of the end screen. And then we're going to just do what we've done down below. We're going to say run is equal to true. Pretty much copy a bit of our loop here. We're just going to say while run, and then for event in Pygame dot event dot get, and then again if event dot type equals Pygame dot quit. We always want our user to be able to leave the game if possible. Dot quit, and then we say run equals false. Pygame dot quit, like so. Okay. And then after this, we're going to do another if statement. We're say if event dot type equals Pygame. Oops, I need another equal sign. Dot all capitals mouse motion, not mouse motion, mouse button down. Then we're going to say run is equal to false. Now what this is going to do is it's pretty much means whenever we click any of the mouse buttons, so right, left, middle mouse button, side mouse buttons, whatever, then we're going to exit this loop. And when we exit this loop, we now exit this function. So because we're exiting that function, then we just continue on with the rest of our loop, and everything's going to be reset. So it's going to look like we just started a new game, when in reality, we're just running through the same loop. We're just kind of moving on to a different screen. Okay. That's pretty good. Now, also in this while loop, we want to draw some other things, so I'll get to that in a second, but let's just first put a delay in here so that our loop doesn't run super fast. Let's do a delay, and maybe we'll do like 100. We don't need it to go that fast, considering all we're going to do is just click a button. And then we can get to drawing everything in just a second. So let's just run the program really quickly and see what's happening so far. So you can see we've got our player. He can run, he can jump, he can slide, whatever. Now let's see what happens when he hits the saw. Just test everything out again. Hits the saw, you can see he falls over. We wait, we wait, we wait. and then it calls end screen, I believe. So maybe we aren't calling end screen. Let's just check this here quickly. If pause is greater than full speed times 2, end screen. Oh, so we've spelled pause wrong. That's great. That's the issue. Okay. So we actually just created a new variable instead of setting pause equal to 1. That would explain why things are happening. Well, I run into a lot of errors with spelling mistakes here, don't I? Okay, so let's give it a second again to see what's happening. We'll just collide with these objects and see if we get to our end screen. Okay, so we've fallen 1, 2, there we go. Okay, it's paused. Perfect. So you can see the game is just paused. Now if I click the mouse button, it continues. So the reason why it's like lagging like this is because we haven't reset any of the variables, but you can see after that 2-second delay we've paused the screen. So that goal has been accomplished. So now let's move on to the next step. Sorry about that little issue before. Okay, so now we're in our end screen. So once we're in our end screen, we want to display a message, right? We want to say like, press this button to continue, so on. We also want to reset a few variables. So if we want to reset variables from a function that we've defined down here, we can't simply just type, for example, pause equals 0. Because if we do this, what actually ends up happening is it creates a new variable in this function, which is local to this function, rather than resetting this pause one. So what we need to do to start is we need to start by typing global, and then the name of all the variables that we want to be able to change and access. So we'll do objects, and then I guess we'll do speed as well, like that. Okay, so now we're going to say objects equals a blank list. The reason we do this is so that when we spawn back in, we don't see any objects on our screen. And then speed, again, it's equal to 30, and that should be good for right now. We don't need to worry about changing any of the attributes of the player, of the runner, so everything should be fine with that. And now what we want to do in here is we want to draw everything. So usually I would say draw everything from a function, but because we're doing it just one time in this loop, it's fine to draw it inside of the loop. And we're going to start by just drawing the background, so win.blit background 0, 0, just to reset everything so it like kind of clears the screen. I'm going to make a font object here. So that we can display some font. So large font is equal to pygame.font.sys font. And then in here, you guys know I like Comic Sans. We'll use that. Size. Oops. We'll give it a size of 80. And we're going to render some font here. So let's just say previous score, which we're going to find in a second, is equal to large font.render. And then we'll render up, let's say previous score plus, actually we'll just leave it previous score for now because I'm going to get to that in a second, comma 1, comma, and then whatever color you want. So in this case, I'm going to do white. And then we'll do our next thing. We're going to need to blit this onto the screen. So we're going to say win.blit previous score. And then you guys should know, hopefully, how we can get this going in the middle of the screen. I think I've done this a few times, maybe not in this series, but in another series of mine. The way that we can do this is simply by taking the width of the screen, dividing it by 2, and then subtracting it from the width of our object. So in this case, I'm just going to copy this in to save me a bit of typing here. So you can see we have width, which is our variable containing the width of the screen, divided by 2, and then subtract the previous score width divided by 2. For height in here, what should our height be? Let's see. We'll just give it a height static of 200. We can play around with that after. Now we also want to blit our new score, which we still haven't even defined yet, so we'll do that in a second. So let's just define here new score, and that's equal to, again, we're going to render this in. I'm just going to copy this, save me a bit of time, like that. We'll do score because it's your current score. Again, we're going to add to that in a second to what the score actually is. And then we'll copy this one more time so that we can blit it onto the screen. Change the name, of course, to new score. And then we'll change the height to, let's say, like 320 maybe. All right, there we go. Now we just need to update the screen. So pygame.display.update, like so. And that should be about it for what we're putting in our, what we're drawing onto the thing. Now, I still haven't defined what our score is going to be and how we're actually going to score. Now, the way we're going to do that is based off speed. So pretty much every time we go up by 10 in speed, we're going to go up by 1 in score. That's the way I want to do it. Or we can do it maybe by 5 so that the scores are higher. Let's do that, actually. So at the top of my function here, or not function, loop, I'm just gonna say score is equal to, and then speed, integer division 5. We remember what integer division does, right? And then we're just gonna subtract 6 from it. Now the reason we're subtracting 6 is because we start at a speed of 30. And I don't want you to start with a score of 6, because if we do 30 divided by 5, we get 6. So it has to be relative to what we've started at. So by subtracting 6, as we're at 30, we're gonna start with a score of 0. Okay, we have the score now. And then up here, we can now just add plus str score, like that. Now I'm also just gonna throw score up here in our global so that we can change it. And then at the bottom outside of our while loop, so once we've exited the while loop, we're gonna reset the score equal to 0 just by doing that. Okay, everything should be good now. Score equals speed. And then we also need to draw the score onto the screen, right? So just like you saw in my other program, we were just splitting the score in our redraw window here. So what I'm gonna do is just make another font object. So let's say font equals pygame.font.sys font. Again, Comic Sans, my go-to. We'll make it about 30 big this time, and then we'll render it out. So let's say text is equal to font.render. In this case, we're just going to use the string score. And before that, we want to put like a little thing before that says score, plus sign, of course, and then 1, and color, white again. And then after that, we need to, of course, put this on the screen. So we'll just say win.blit, text, and where do we want to put it? Let's put it about 700, and then 10. Okay, and that should be good. Let's now run the program and see if we run into any errors. There we go. Okay, so we can see we have score now up at the top of the screen, and every time we increment by 5, we get the score going up by 1. So we can see here everything looks to be working fine. If I hit an object, I fall over, we wait the delay, and then we have previous score and we have score. Awesome. Everything is looking good here. Now the only thing that's the issue is we need to fix what previous score is, and we need to fix the position of score. The reason score is like that is I just realized I messed up on one thing here. So I copied and pasted this, but I didn't change the name of previous score. Let's change this to new score. And then we should have that working. And we also need to figure out what our previous score is going to be. Now what I'm going to do for our previous score is I'm simply going to write it into a text file. So in Python, it's really cool and really simple. You can write stuff into text files really easily, and that's how we're going to save our score. And you could save other attributes in there as well. Say if you had like characters that you were unlocking or something and you wanted to save which ones were there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to simply open up the folder in which I have the game in. You can see I already have a text file that I've called scores.txt. If you don't know how to create a new text file, it's really easy. You just go new and then find text file here, text document, and go ahead and there you go. You can name it, and you don't even need to put anything in it. So just name yours scores.txt like that. All right, I'm just going to delete this one because I don't need it anymore. Now again, it's really important to make sure that the scores.txt is in the same directory as your Python file. So you can see I've got 2 files here. This is the one I'm working from, and scores is in the same directory. It's not inside of images, it's not inside another folder, it's right beside the starter file. So make sure that's like that. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption here. So while I was editing this video, I realized I made a really quick mistake. So I just wanted to fix that really quickly for you guys. So all you need to do to fix this mistake and make your program run properly is go into scores here and just type 0 and then save it. That's all. That's going to make it work. It's because you're going to run into an error otherwise. Just make sure you go in scores, the text file you made, type 0, type a number, Control S, save it, and there you go. So let's get back with the video. And then we're gonna just include a little function that I created here. I'm just gonna copy and paste it in to save a bit of time, as this video has already gone fairly long, and you guys can just copy it. It's really simple, and I'll go through how it works. So I'm gonna create another function here. I'm just gonna say update file. Now what this one does is we use F to open up and save our file as scores.txt. This mode here is R, which means we're reading in the file. Our file now, so the content of our file is equal to f.readlines. The last score is just going to be the only line in the file because we're only using that one line. So we say file 0, that's the first line because this just puts it into a list for us. And then we say if last, which is going to be the score that we use, here is less than the integer of our score. Then we say f.close. We're going to close this file because we're now actually going to reopen the same file, except we're going to clear the contents by putting a W here, and we're going to rewrite our score in it like that. So that if we get a higher score, we're rewriting it. If it's a lower score, it's going to stay the same. And then if this is true, we're going to return what our current score was. Otherwise, we're returning the last score that was in the text file, which is going to be higher than what we just got. Okay, so we have this update file. Just copy this down. And then in our end screen here, where we have previous score, we're just going to say plus string of update file. Because not only does update file will update our file, it also returns the value of our score that we need to be putting in the text file. Okay, there we are. Now let's go ahead and run the program, and this should be everything that we need. Again, the hitboxes, if you feel that the game is too difficult, that you're running into objects, just go ahead and shrink those down a little bit. Personally, I might make the size of the saw hitbox a little bit smaller so that you see those little corners that popping up where the saw actually isn't. We don't end up running into those, because you can see the jump is fairly difficult to do on its own. As we continue running, our score goes up. Oh no, we fell. Our score is 9. Score 9, previous score 9. There we go, because that's the best score. So yeah, you can see we ran into a glitch here. We're just continued to fall. That's because I needed to actually fix one thing. Good job we didn't wrap up the video quite yet. Once we get in this while loop here, we're just gonna underneath here go runner dot falling equals false, and that should hopefully fix things. Let's make sure. So if we jump up and hit the saw, again, like I said, we're always running into bugs here, and I'm sure you guys are probably going to find a lot more. If you have any questions about them, again, just leave them in the comments down below. Let's jump in the air. We run into it, and let's see what happens now. Okay, we start. You can see, there we are, and we fall back down. That's just the way that it works there. If you want him to, again, start on the bottom, then you guys can figure that out. If we run into the saw, let's see. There we go, we've fallen, and as we start back up, we fall back down. Okay, very good. So that's been it for this video, of the fourth and final video in my side scroller series. If you guys enjoyed this series, please help me out by leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And if there's any other videos or games that you'd like to learn how to make, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below, as I'm always looking for ideas for next videos.